Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
A decision on DACA?
Sometime today or over the weekend, we'll have a decision.
Should Dreamers be worried?
We love the Dreamers. We love everybody. Thank you very much.
Donald Trump says he loves the Dreamers, but on Tuesday he may end the program known as DACA, which allows nearly 1 million young people to live and work in this country without fear of deportation. Joining me now, our attorney Raul Reyes, Carrie Sheffield, founder of Bold, a news platform aimed at millennials, and my MSNBC colleague Ali Velshi, co-host of my obsession, Velshi and Rule. Thank you guys for being here. Raul, let's start with you. Your thoughts on whether or not you think it's likely, just based on the chatter that you're hearing, you are an attorney and you deal with a lot of immigration issues, do you think it's likely that Donald Trump ends DACA on Tuesday?
I think based on what we know about Donald Trump, I think if he keeps it, it will have very little to do with his supposed heart for these young people or any type of empathy, because we've never seen that from him unless it was directly related to his own interests or his family. I think this weekend is giving him an idea of what the ferocious pushback might look like. But what I want people to know about this, what I think is so important, that this whole deadline is arbitrary, it's artificial. It's just because Texas and these other states threatened to sue a lawsuit. There's no deadline. It's basically a type of legal grandstanding, a stunt. They are challenging Donald Trump. And for someone who came to power by telling the American people that he was an expert businessman with superb negotiating skills, it's astonishing that he appears very likely to just cave, to give up, and upend the lives of thousands of young people.
Yeah, we just put up the states: Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Nebraska, South Carolina, West Virginia. Tennessee was part of this lawsuit, but the Tennessee Attorney General actually pulled out of this this potential lawsuit. It hasn't even really been filed yet. So, Carrie, you know, you now have business leaders who've come out against the idea of ending DACA. You've got, you know, Facebook came out, Mark Zuckerberg came out against it. You've had 1,800 public officials, 1,850 public officials come out and sign a letter saying don't do it. So you've got a pretty full-throated opposition to the idea of ending DACA. Why should Donald Trump do it, in your view?
Sure. So I think that there are serious legal questions about what DACA is. The Supreme Court upheld an injunction against DACA because basically this was an issue of jurisdiction, that Barack Obama did not have jurisdiction to do something that is supposed to be for Congress to do, number one. Number two, the economics of it. I can see why, of course, companies want to have cheap labor. The fact of the matter is these immigrants, these people who are here, they are driving down blue-collar wages for Trump voters, but also for African Americans. This is a failure of the Democratic Party to protect low-skilled high school dropouts or high school attainment African American workers. This is a major problem. So I think there are lots of issues at stake here. I also was a Moody's analyst. Moody's has put out, you know, multiple reports looking at our fiscal trajectory. We are in trouble. When you look at Social Security, we need to preserve it. I think, you know, all of us at this table would agree that we want
who are here through DACA, 91% of whom are employed, are paying into Social Security. So they are actually shoring up the Social Security system because they're putting money in that they don't even get back out.
Sure, but when you look at in aggregate, so the Congressional Budget Office looked at the effects of immigration on the states. I can see why the states are...
Are you talking about immigration broadly, or are you talking about DACA?
Well, illegal immigrants are here. Most of them are low-skilled. About 50% are high school dropouts or high school only. We need to be much more deliberate about who we let into the country. I am all for more immigrants. We need more immigrants of all colors: black, white, Latino, polka dot, any race. But we need to be deliberate in making sure that we are, I think, like Canada. There was a report from a Canadian analyst looking at basically Canada is so strict on who they let into the country, and yet they have more immigrants, but they are both focused on educational attainment. 50% of their immigrants have a college degree versus DACA, which only requires a high school degree.
Okay, let me let Ali, you've put a lot there on the table, and we happen to have both a Canadian, an immigrant, and somebody who is an analyst, a financial analyst, and that would be Ali Velshi. Ali, your witness.
I'm a double immigrant. I immigrated as a baby to Canada and then an adult to the United States, and I'm of immigrant parents. Let me tell you what happens in Canada. Canada lets refugees in at a much higher rate than America does without any regard to their education. So, Carrie, my excellent friend Carrie, never bring up Canada in an immigration conversation. Secondly, Google, Facebook, and Apple wanting cheap labor. Average salary at Google is $121,000. At Apple, it's $87,000. And Facebook, it's $138,000 before bonuses. This isn't about cheap labor. Issue number 3, United States has a negative worker replacement rate, which means we have to have immigrants. Now, if you're looking at your basket of undocumented immigrants and you're focused, as Donald Trump says he is, on those who are the worst and the criminals and the gangs and the thugs and the bad hombres, this is the opposite side of that equation. Their average age 26, some as old as 36, came in at the age of 6, all speak English, 45% in school, most of them working. And if they commit a crime, we get to track them because of this visa, and they get thrown out of the country. There is possibly no better group of undocumented immigrants that you actually want in the country. So, Carrie, you and I speak the same language from the perspective of economics and GDP growth, which you talked about, and increasing GDP growth. We need more workers. We need them to be productive. And one final thing. Let's say I'm a DACA person. I'm 26 years old. I'm making money legally above the table. This is for me. This is for the government. This is for me. This is for the government. This is probably for the government. So all that deficit and GDP growth and jobs, this part goes to the government. This part I spend to make companies hire people. I'm good for the economy any way you slice this. Ending DACA doesn't make sense. And to your final point on the legality of DACA, let Congress do it, and then make it completely legal. We can solve this problem. Throwing these 800,000 people out is not the solution. I have to put my money back in my wallet now.
Wait, before I get to Carrie, go ahead really quickly, Ralph.
The legal underpinning of DACA is sound. It is grounded in statutory law. It is grounded in precedent. As recently as 2012, the Supreme Court upheld in U.S. v. Arizona that programs like deferred action are constitutional because the federal government has brought in powers and discretion over immigration enforcement. The fact that we have the faith community, the business community, liberals, Republican lawmakers coming out against it, it really doesn't make sense that we have all of these people on one side. But you know what's very troubling is one way that this idea of ending DACA does make sense if you look at it as part of a broader white nationalist, xenophobic, nativist strategy. The Bannon influence, the influence of Stephen Miller, that's really the only way that it makes sense. And there's something ironic about Trump potentially ending this program, which, as Ali said, will increase unemployment right around Labor Day weekend, and not to mention the fact that Texas is the state with the second largest, highest number of dreamers, and Houston is the number 4 city for these dreamers.
Carrie.
With all due respect, I hope that we can have a conversation without accusing people of being racist or xenophobic. I think that this is a question of economics. This is a question of sovereignty.
On the economic,
and also, Cesar Chavez, who was a labor leader, was very much against illegal immigration because he saw what it did.
You're mixing so many different things. Let's
I'm
not bring
responding to a lot of the criticisms.
Okay, let's not bring him up. Let's just go through. Let's go through the points that were made. Hold on.
Undocumented immigrants.
He saw what they did to the legal immigrants. It drives down the wages and the
Cesar
cost of
Chavez
living.
wanted the undocumented in the union. He was not against illegal immigration.
He was definitely.
No.
He saw what it did to the
Right, but you're
okay.
Wait, you've derailed the conversation and talking about Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was not against undocumented immigrants. We're not going to talk about Cesar Chavez. So, okay, let's go back to what we were talking about. On the points that were made, let's go back to Ali's first point. In terms of the productivity to the economy, we're talking about people who are 91% of whom are employed, 45% of whom are in school. This is not low-skill immigration. You mix those two things together. Separate out just DACA. These are people who are employed, who have to pay the government in order to be in the program. So they're actually giving money into the Treasury. They're working, meaning that they're paying into Social Security. In what way are they hurting the economy of the United States?
Sure, absolutely. So when you look at Huffington Post reported, for example, only 15% of these DACA individuals are enrolled in college. This is
because
a high-skilled economy.
They're working.
Well, but they're working in low-skilled, predominantly wages and jobs.
The DACA recipients are working as first responders. They're working as teachers. They're one of them. They're working in law enforcement in communities where the police need Spanish speakers. They're in medical school. The DACA young people, they are among the most constructive and productive people in this country. And we shouldn't even think of them as who we're letting into the country. They're here. They are among us. It's not as though we're setting up a gateway to their entry. They're here. And remember, if Donald Trump ends this program, what he will do to these young people is put them immediately at risk for detention, immigration, prison, and then removal from the country. And we know that because so far, immigration arrests of non-criminals are up 150%. That's what Donald Trump will do to these young people if he ends DACA.
Let me ask a specific question to Carrie, because the question here is not legalization. We haven't gotten to the point where we're discussing comprehensive immigration reform. This is the federal government making decisions on who they prioritize deportation for, right? And in the case of DACA, they're simply saying, we are not going to prioritize you. If you are somebody who came into the country as a child, if you are somebody who meets all these criteria, which we're going to to put back up on the screen. If you meet all of these criteria, we're just not going to prioritize you for deportation. If you get rid of DACA, you're saying you want to prioritize these young people for deportation, right?
I think it's leveling the playing field because, again, we need a system based on accomplishment and merit, not based on the fact that your parents came into the country illegally.
DACA is a
This the
merit-based
difference.
program.
No,
DACA is
it's
specifically-
no, the merit is a high school graduate only. We need
No,
much more.
No,
that's the minimum.
That is not
Let me let
DACA.
And
Ali Velshi-
the New York Times also reported these DACA applications are straining the system such that what's happening is that you have a high school student or maybe a high school only attainment basically clogging the system so that a high school PhD student from India
That actually
won't be
isn't
in our
true.
system.
Well,
This is
Ali
exactly
Velshi,
what we need.
let
We
me
need
let you
high
in.
school immigrant.
No,
and if I could say about Canada to Ali, there's an essay by Jonathan Tepperman from Foreign Affairs where he calls the Canadian system ruthlessly smart. Only 50% of Canadian immigrants have a college
Velshi is
degree.
from
but
Canada.
I know. This is what I'm saying. I
knows
agree
his
with
own
Canada.
system.
What I'm saying is that 50% of Canadian immigrants have a college
I
degree,
need
but
to
only
stop you.
27% of
Stop.
American
Stop.
immigrants
We're
do.
gonna take a break.
We need more skilled
You need to
immigrants.
calm down. We need to stop. We need to stop. Everybody needs to stop talking, okay? Because we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and I'm going to let Ali Velshi answer after the break. But we have to stop talking and take a break.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.